Hey everyone, I'm Laura Giannino. I'm the publicity manager at HarperCollins 360, which is our global publishing platform. I am so excited to be joined here by one of our authors, Nikita Singh. She just wrote Like a Love Song, available in the US for the first time. It's out now. And in India, she just wrote Every Time It Rains. And you can get that in India, available now wherever books are sold, or if you're in the US, you can buy that in ebook form. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get started. Yeah.
Yes. So Nikita, the first question I had for you, which I think a lot of people want to know, is what is your favorite scene from the book?
Well, I mean, it is a romance fiction, so the boy meets girl kind of scene. The first time Lala, who's our central character, meets JD is one of my favorite scenes. And it's a weird way that it happened because I actually hadn't planned that scene. I just wanted them to meet, and then everything that happened after when they met was very like, it happened in the moment. And I've marked that section to read. And yeah, we can open it up to conversation after that. So just to give you a little bit of background, Lala and Mahi are best friends, and they started a bakery in Like a Love Song. And in this book, they are still working on that. They're trying to make it go national. Mahi wants to collaborate with a coffee shop, Roast House, that JD works in. And Lala doesn't actually want to do that, but she is also not the kind of person who would cancel a meeting at the last moment, so she decides to just go with it and, you know, sort of blow him off when she meets him. So this is where the scene begins. As she pulled open the door and the cool air blew her hair back from her face, she heard a consistent murmur of conversation over the music. They seemed to be playing old Hindi film songs. While she waited in line to place her order, the song changed from O Mere Dil Ki Chain to Baahon Mein Chale Aao. She got her coffee and found a table for two upstairs. She had been to several roast house cafes before, but this one seemed to have a completely different energy. It buzzed with the chatter of millennials, scattered around in bunches, huddled in groups, heads leaning together over laptops, pushing around notes across tables, or simply chatting. The vintage Indian wooden furniture, the embroidered tapestries and carvings on the walls and ceilings, teamed with glass walls, polished floors, and modern architecture, gave the place a fresh look, an exciting fusion of India with the West. Lala could have spent hours just sitting there watching people and their reaction to what the place offered. She overheard comments about the music every time a new song played. People were showing each other their unique vintage cups and plates and taking pictures. Roast House seemed to be doing everything right. The smell of freshly brewed coffee, the wonderful music, the interiors that gave a very Mughal palace-like feel to the shop. After she sipped her coffee, she found it even harder to hate the place. She had worked in a coffee shop for a few years before setting up cookies plus cupcakes with Mahi, and remembered those days as being frustrating, sometimes even suffocating. The coffee, or even the coffee shop, wasn't to blame for it. It was her who wasn't happy there, but it was easy to shift the blame. Perhaps she could get over it, and they could collaborate with Roast House after all. She wanted to hear what they had in mind first, but she promised herself she'd keep an open mind. Is this seat taken? Lala's thoughts were interrupted by a tall, lanky, goofy-looking man with curly hair pointing at the seat in front of her. Actually, I'm meeting someone soon. I'll be super quick. The dude had already dumped his food on the table and was pulling the chair. You can always kick me out if your friend arrives before I'm done shoving this down my throat, he said. Lala opened her mouth to protest, but let it go. Even though he looked to be in his mid-20s, he was skinny like a 19-year-old, or maybe it was just because he was so tall. But in any case, he needed to eat, and as long as he did it quietly, Lala didn't have a problem. The real problem was that he wasn't quiet. Oh, I love this song, he exclaimed as Ek Ajnabi Hasina Se started playing. Lala nodded politely and returned to her iPad. You know what? That was real romance, he said. Brave, fearless, boy likes girl and just goes for it. No talking, no weighing options, calculating, trying to fit people into this mathematical equation you've made up in your head. They let people be and love them for who they were. Yes, Kishore Kumar was very romantic and wise, Lala said. You don't talk much, do you? The dude asked, forcing huge forkfuls of green leaves into his mouth. He cut up a piece of chicken and looked up at Lala. This stupid diet. My friend is making me do the greens and protein thing. He's trying to bulk me up for the ladies, he snorted. Despite her better judgment, Lala asked, What's so funny? I'm never going to bulk up, he said. I have the best metabolism you'll ever see. I work a lot now, so don't get time to eat that much, but even when I had nothing else to do in life and ate professionally, nah, I never gained weight. Not wanting to comment on the stranger's body or talk about her own to extend the conversation, Lala smiled and turned to her iPad once again. You're very pretty. He said it as an observation, as if it just occurred to him. It was so unexpected that all Lala could do was look up at him and stare. He chuckled and said, Not trying to hit on you or anything. Although, why not? I'm single and you're stunning and clearly smart, I can tell. Are you single? That doesn't concern you, she said. It actually does. I just told you, I think you really... Dude, stop, Lala said, not trying to be polite anymore. I'm not interested. She checked the time. JD would be arriving any moment now. As if reading her mind, the man said, Hoping for your friend to rescue you? Yeah, he'll be here any second. If you're done eating, would you mind giving me the chair back? She said. Sure, he said. He looked a little upset by her blunt rejection. His face looked like that of a small child denied candy. For his boisterous, uninhibited behavior, he seemed to be a decent person inside. Didn't mean to bother you or make you uncomfortable or anything. I should really put a filter on and stop saying everything I think. Lala watched as he picked up his empty box of salad and downed the cold-pressed juice. She felt bad about her behavior and said, It's okay. You didn't make me uncomfortable, I guess. A slow smile spread across his face, followed by a wink. Works every time. Lala narrowed her eyes. Here, take my orange. What? Lala asked, staring at the fresh, whole orange inches from her face, wondering if it was some kind of a joke. I like you. I'm giving you my orange. Lala kept staring. It's not poison or anything. Come on, take it. Think of it as a rose, only it's less like a rose and more like an orange. You can eat it and get nourishment instead of going to the trouble of finding a vase, filling it up with water, and then throwing away the depressing dead flower a week later. Lala burst out laughing, and he joined her. She held on to the orange, but didn't take it. Only if you promise to leave right after, she said. I do. Lala took the stupid orange from him, shaking her head at his I do wordplay. He winked again, his curly hair bouncing happily as he got up. After giving Lala a goodbye salute, he walked a few steps away and looked around as if searching for something or someone. He pulled out his phone and dialed someone. Hello, Mahi, I'm here. Are you on your way? So that's how they meet for the first time.
I love that. I love that she keeps calling him dude.
The dude. The dude.
I thought that was so great. And I love that the cafe is buzzing with chatter of millennials.
Yeah.
So I think now is a good time to dive into some questions about Every Time It Rains. And the first one that I think a lot of people might find really interesting is, what was the inspiration behind the title?
The title, so Lala and Mahi, the central characters, they are very strong, independent women. They have great relationships with their family, with their friends. They have a full life. They go out, they have fun, they have their passion, they have their career. So they're artists and businesswomen, and they don't feel like they need more in life. Actually, that's not true. Mahi does. Lala doesn't. And but it's just that every time it rains and she's alone and she looks out of the window, she feels this certain emptiness which she can't really explain. And she feels like there's a void and she needs something. So that's where the title sort of comes from, because the book is about melancholy and that feeling of, realizing that you're happy, but you can be happier.
Right. Yeah. I think that's really relatable too.
Yeah.
What about some of the central themes in the book?
Well, like I said, melancholy is one of the central themes. And then we also talk about female friendship a lot, because it wasn't actually intentional, but the way it happened was because Lala first meets Mahi in the first book, and it was written from Mahi's point of view. And then we see Laila as this badass woman who's doing whatever she wants. She doesn't care about what people think, and she goes for what she wants. And Mahi looks at Laila and wants to sort of be like her. And I wanted, while I was writing like a love song, I wondered what the inside of Laila's head would look like, because it's so easy to look at someone and think that their life is perfect. But it's only once you get inside their heads that you see what makes them happy, what makes them cry, and what makes them smile, and all of those things. And I wanted to find out about, what her insecurities are, and then we find that there's this baggage from the past, and there's like domestic abuse, and being in a loving relationship, and then finding that it doesn't mean anything that she thought it meant, and all of those things that she's fighting with.
So I think we've talked a little bit about some of the main characters, but I want to dive into them a little bit more. Who exactly are they, and what are they like?
So Laila and Mahi are kind of the opposite of each other. Mahi is kind of a romantic, and she wants love. She wants to feel, cared for and appreciated, and she wants all that romance. And Laila is like, oh, I don't care. So, they're kind of opposites of each other, but they are similar in the fact that they're both very ambitious. They both want to work on something that they love so much, which is cookies and cupcakes. So that makes life easier. And yeah, so they try to like grow their business and work on that. They both value relationships, and they have their weak moments, but I think that they're in their cores, they're very strong women. Yeah.
So speaking of strong women, I love this idea that the female friendships in the book kind of overpower the romantic relationship.
Yeah,
so I was curious if that was intentional or why you did that.
Well, for Like a Love Song, it was kind of intentional, because people talk about relationships and romantic relationships so much, and I mean, of course, romance novels, but I feel like love interests sort of come and go, and friends stay. And I wanted to show that Mahi, in the beginning of Like a Love Song, was so heartbroken, and she had no idea what she was doing in her life. But she finds a passion, and she finds a great friend in this other woman, and then they develop this great idea about their business together, and they start working on that. And I just feel that that's so strong. And it's also funny that people very often point out that the female friendship in Every Time It Rains, because it's like they've been together for so long now, and they're business partners. It just stands out so much. And I think it's funny, because I think if these both women were men, nobody would ask that question,
right,
because they just assume that men are better friends with each other than women can be. But from what I've seen, from the kind of friends that I have around me, my closest friends are all women, and their closest friends are also all women. So I think it's very obvious that there would be this kind of friendship between two people.
I completely agree, and I think that's such a great message for readers too about friendship. So the next question is also about JD and Laila, and about how they're so different. And I was wondering if you meant for that to be the case, if you wanted to explore the opposites attract angle, or if it was something else.
I guess if anything, JD is very similar to Mahi, because he's also a romantic. It's just the only difference is that he's older. Mahi is like 4 years younger than Laila, I think, 4 or 5 years. And JD is almost Laila's age, but he's this like flamboyant and like very open person. He's the kind of person who would give you hugs, and he sort of finds Laila, steps into her life, and just decides to make her his family. And she's like, what is happening? I didn't sign up for this. So I think while I was creating Laila's character, I was wondering what kind of person would sort of get through to her and get under her skin, and what kind of person she couldn't stop thinking about, because she wouldn't go for somebody who's like very polished and like very phony too. So I wanted somebody who was so generous and kind and open that everything that he has to offer is on the table, and she sees it, and it's that honesty that she goes for.
So now we're going to take some live questions from the viewers. And I apologize in advance if I mess up some names here. So Debashish asks, what's the target of this novel? What message or conclusion did you want to share with your readers through the novel?
Well, one of the things that I wanted people to feel was that no matter how bad how many bad things happen to you and how bad things get, there's always like a silver lining, and it might not happen immediately. For Lala, it took years to sort of get over what happened with her when she was 21 years old, and now she's 28. She has this great life that she's built for herself, but she realizes that it still bothers her, and she has to, have closure and sort of move on from that. And it's devastating what happens with her, and it's really tragic about her and her mom, and but there's still hope, and there will be a person who would make you forget about everything that happened in the past and move on. So yeah, that was one of the things. I'm a strong believer in happy endings.
Me too. Saqib asks, what's your favorite baked good? Because he or she noticed the cupcakes in front of us.
Well, of course, cookies and cupcakes, they are the central theme of both of these books, and maybe the next couple books also. So yeah.
Nikita asks, do you take characters from real life?
Well, not exactly from real life, but I try to sort of build a character first, and then while I'm writing, so I don't plan to write a character like this person that I know. Mm-hmm. I would start writing, and then I would think about, I think it automatically sort of happens that some of the things that they do, the way their body moves, and their facial expressions and things like that, because I observe people so much, I'm that creep, so who just watches people, that it sort of organically sort of shows up in my writing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sharma wants to know, how different is this novel from one of your previous novels, The Promise?
The Promise. I think it's very different. I think, but it's an interesting question, because the lead character in The Promise, Shambhavi, is kind of like Lala. The only difference is that Lala is very ambitious, and she's focused, and she knows what she wants, and she's going for it. For Shambhavi, she was kind of all over the place, and then she was dealing with a lot in the present, and I think Lala is dealing with a lot of baggage from the past. So right now everything is fine, and she's very focused, and so there are differences, and the theme-wise and everything, it's completely different.
Sumbrata asks, how much has moving to the States changed your style of thinking and writing? That's really interesting.
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot also. I think I did my master's in fine arts and creative writing from the New School here, and I think moving to New York in general is such a huge experience, and especially for me, because I lived at home until I was 21, and then I lived alone by myself in Delhi for a year, and I was working in publishing before I started applying for schools here, and then I moved here. So it was kind of very early in my living by myself phase, and sort of navigating through a new country. And I actually hadn't been to any other country before just deciding to move here. Yeah. So this is the first foreign country that I visited, and I just stayed, and I went to school here, made a fresh, batch of friends, and the teaching here, the teachers, the way they approach it, everything is so different, and I think it has changed my writing, but it's not because of what they teach you about how to write, because it's a very advanced degree. It's a master's program, so they're not actually going to sit you down and teach you how to write. They basically, I learned more about reading and how different people read a book than writing. And I think it's the overall experience of moving here, living by myself, and meeting new people and talking to them and going to new places that has given more perspective and a more wider sort of range to my writing.
This is so great. I'm learning so much about you. Shandan asks, can you relate yourself to Mahi or Layla in any way?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because when I was writing like a love song, I felt like I was more like Mahi. And then Lala was this person who's so cool and I wanted to be like her. And while I was writing Every Time It Rains, it's sort of that transition happened in my life also. Although it's funny that I went to dinner with a friend a few nights ago and she was telling me, because she's read my most recent books, and she was telling me that she actually thinks that I was like Lala in like a love song too. Like I've been that from the beginning that she's known me. But I actually didn't feel that way. I thought that I was more like Mahi, and then while I was writing this, I was becoming more like Lala, and I felt more connected to her. But I mean, of course, I'm not that cool, but I don't know if they'll let me hang out with them, but
I think they would.
Hope so.
Gaurav asks, out of all of the books you've written, which story do you relate to the most?
I think these two, both of them, because I see them, they're standalone novels that can be read without this, and this can be read without that. But I think that these characters, because when I write something, I get more connected to the character than anything else. And I think these are the characters that are like my people. I really like them, and I want to find out more about them. And so I think, so in the first book, it was about Mahi and her best friend Lala, and her brother Sarthak and her boyfriend Siddhant, who's her ex-boyfriend now. And I think the next two books are going to be about those guys. So the third one would be probably about Siddhant, and the fourth one about Sarthak. So it'll be like a fun experiment to sort of see what's going on in their lives and what they're like when they're not with Mahi. Like when we don't see them in like Mahi's life, what are they doing and where are they going? And because they were so all of these characters in this sort of collection or series are very close to me.
That's great. Rahul asks, what's the best way to write a novel without interruption?
Well, I write at night. I start writing at like 8 p.m. and I keep writing until 8 in the morning. So, wow. And then I sleep for a few hours and then start my day. And but to be fair, if you're really invested in, and especially with art, if you're really invested in something that you're doing, I don't think things interrupt you as much. Because I remember writing a book over winter break at my grandparents' house when it was full of all my cousins and all of my uncles and aunts and my own family. And I would just sit at the dining table after everybody was asleep, and I would write all night, and then my aunt would wake up in the morning and she'd be like, do you want tea? What time did you wake up? I was like, yeah, I didn't sleep, and I don't want tea because I'm going to sleep now. So I think if you're really invested in what you're doing and you want to do it, it's very hard to get interrupted.
That's so crazy you write through the night. I've never heard that before.
I mean, there's so much going on during the day.
That's true. Raj asks, how did you feel when this book launched?
I actually, so I lost track of the number of books, and as soon as I got to India last month, so I was touring all of February, the first media questions that started coming was, 10th book, how does it feel? Like it's kind of a landmark. And for me, I was like, oh, is it? It was so confusing because I always focus on one book at a time, and I am excited that it's the 10th book. It doesn't actually mean much to me. It just means that my personal aim is always that the next book has to be better than the last one. So I'm very happy with this book, and I hope that people like it, and that's pretty much how I feel. Like I feel nervous because writing is such like a solitary sort of experience, because I'm writing alone. There's no one else who's reading it, because I actually don't send out my work until it's done. Like the whole book is over, and then I would send it to my agent and then my editor, and then we would go from there. So I don't talk about the book, I don't discuss anything beforehand, and then it's so weird that in a few months everybody's reading it and it's out and we're talking about it so much. But the part that I enjoy the most is when people actually read it, and then again it becomes like a solitary experience between the reader and the book, and then they write to me about how they felt. So that's what makes me excited about a new book coming out, to sort of find out what these readers are thinking about, like how their experience is different from how mine was while I was writing it.
Right, because it had been in your head this whole time, so now you're...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So, looks like we only have time for 3 more questions.
Okay.
Harshit asks, he says, big fan here, Nikita. My question is, will you ever write a different genre?
I get asked that question so much. Even, this is funny because I was doing a launch in Kolkata, and I was signing books, and this guy says from the background, I just hear his voice, I didn't even see him. He was like, I'm expecting a thriller from you next. And I was like, wait, what? Why? When did I say that I was going to write a thriller, you know? And I mean, it's funny because you don't ask an electrical engineer to do something that a software engineer is supposed to do. And if you want to read, even today somebody asked me when I'm writing mystery or fantasy. And I was like, mystery, fantasy, romance. There's no connection. And I write what makes me really happy, like writing this book and working on it for months, because I have to invest months or almost a year of my time on every book. And if you want to read thriller or crime fiction or fantasy or you know, horror even. These are the things that people have asked me to write before. Go to a bookstore and pick up a book in that genre. Like, I don't think I'm planning to write any of those anytime soon. I only plan one book at a time, and the next book is going to be about Siddhant. Okay. So it's not about a different genre.
So book 11 will not be a horror?
No.
Arnab asks, are there certain characters you would like to go back to, or is there a theme or idea that you'd love to work with?
Yeah, these characters, Mahi, Lala, Siddhant, Sarthak, these 4 people are my favorite so far. I mean, that's unfair because there are more characters that I also really like. But going back to a book that I wrote, for example, my 4th book, which was done like 4 years ago, I can't really, I don't see how many people who read that book would read the new one, and it would be like not a continuous sort of process that people can just pick it up and read both of them together, and it will make sense. So I think this is a good idea to do these 4 books about these 4 characters that I'm so invested in.
And our final question is from Shandan. Did writing any of your book change your perspective towards things in life?
Writing, yeah, it does, because even when you start writing something, you think about, you plan it out in a certain way, and it ends up being not that. At the end of the process, when you read the book, it's not the book that you planned to write, but it sort of directs itself in a way that it becomes what it needs to be. And I sort of let that happen because at a certain point you sort of you let go and the characters take over, and I think that's what I've learned. Mm-hmm. To sort of, you know, you make all these plans for your life, and you know, you want this to happen now, and you have a timeline, and you have all of these steps that you're going to do, and then you don't factor in life and all the random things that keep happening, and you have to leave space for that. Yeah. And be okay with you know, them throwing stuff at you, and then you know, dealing with that.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a great last question, a perfect way to end it. Everyone's questions were so great. It's been so nice being able to talk to you, and this is the first time Nikita and I actually met in person. So it's been really great working with you and finally getting to meet you today.
Yeah, it's so great to meet you also. Like, it's good that you now know more about my writing, so because she's my publicist, so she should know more things about me just to market me better. And thank you so much, guys, for being here. We'll do something soon again. Thank you.
Thank you.